Open the kitchen drawer in your father's house. You already know what's in there. Stainless. A bread knife somebody picked up at a hardware store. 2 paring knives that came free with something else. And shoved to the back, laying crooked under a spatula, the brown-handled one. Dark blade, black in places. Sharpened so many times the edge has crawled up into the middle of the knife, and the tip doesn't quite look like a tip anymore. That was the cheapest thing in the drawer the day it was bought. And it's the only one nobody ever threw away. I've got one right here, and what I want to do is read it. Not appraise it, read it, the way you'd read a worn stair tread. A knife like this usually passes through about 3 sets of hands before it lands in front of somebody like you. And what each set of hands did to it is still sitting on the steel, if you know where to look. I'll get to that. But first, if there's one of these in your house right now, 3 things need checking before you clean a single inch of it. Hold on to that. Look at what's actually here. A piece of carbon steel, a piece of hardwood, 2 brass rivets squeezed through the tang. That's the whole product. No exotic steel with a name like a fighter jet, no composite scales, no coating, no locking mechanism. There is almost nothing here for a salesman to brag about. Ontario Knife Company dates the Old Hickory line to 1924, out of Franklinville, New York. And a small thing I like, because it's honest. On that same company page, a few lines down, they also write they've been making Old Hickory since the early 1900s. 2 different origin stories, same page, same company. I can't settle that for you, and I won't pretend to. What I can tell you is what this knife was for. Nobody bought one of these as an heirloom. It was the working knife a farm kitchen or a butcher shop could actually afford, sitting in a hardware store next to hinges and hoof picks. So picture the first pair of hands. Not a documented family, I don't have one and I won't invent one, just the common path, the one that repeated in a few million American houses. A man buys it because it's cheap, and that's where our modern instinct goes wrong. Today cheap means throw it out when it wears. Back then it meant something closer to, I can afford this, so I can afford to use it hard. Nobody was protecting this knife. Everybody was using it. The reputation of this line rests on plain high-carbon steel, and carbon steel makes you a simple offer. It will rust on you. It'll go dark from an onion. In exchange, it takes an edge easily, and gives that edge back, over and over, on a stone in your own kitchen. That's the trade. Not magic, a trade. And that trade is where the internet loses its mind. 1095 versus 1075. People will tell you with total confidence which one your grandfather's knife is. Here's what Ontario's own technical consultant, Dan Maragni, the man responsible for that change, published on the company's own site. The switch happened gradually, model by model, as the older steel ran out. And then the sentence that ends the argument. Without a chemical analysis of the blade, there is no way to distinguish the two. No way. Not by eye, not by the stamp, not from a photograph. So, if somebody looks at yours and names the steel, they're guessing. A confident guess is still a guess. And honestly, the first pair of hands never cared. That man didn't want a specification. He wanted to know he could put an edge back on it before supper. Which brings me to something you can do tonight. If there's an Old Hickory in your house, go get your phone and photograph it. Both faces of the blade, the whole outline against a plain surface. Any markings, lit from the side, not straight on. That's it. 4 or 5 pictures. Don't wash it first. Don't oil it. Don't wipe the black off to make it photograph nicer. Photograph it dirty. Because the version of that knife sitting in your hand right now is the only one that will ever exist, and it stops existing the moment you improve it. Later on, I'll give you the full 5-minute routine, the whole thing, and there's a printable version in the description. But if you never watch another minute of this, take the pictures. All right, back to the steel in front of me. Set a new one of the same pattern next to an old one sometime. The new blade is tall, with a straight, even grind and a clean belly curve. This one is narrower. The belly's gone flat. Look here. The edge has a shallow scoop worn into it, right about where a hand naturally sits. Every time somebody sharpened this, a little steel left the building. Do that every few weeks for 40 years, and the knife is physically smaller than the one that came out of the factory. And there's a way to see it. Look for the faint boundary, where the factory finish met the bevel, the old grind line. On a used-up knife, the working edge has climbed away from it, and you can see the ghost of the original geometry sitting above the edge, like a water line on a dock. That gap is the closest thing this knife has to a signature. Now, what does it prove, and what doesn't it? It proves the knife was sharpened, a lot, mostly in one place. It does not tell me who sharpened it, or what they were cutting, or whether they were any good at it. That flat spot is physical evidence. The rest is family history, and family history doesn't live on steel. It lives in somebody's aunt. That distinction is going to matter later, so I'll say it plain. The knife tells you what happened to it. Only your family can tell you who, where, and why. And not every mark is a story. A deep chip is damage. Pitting that's eaten down into the surface is damage. A cracked scale, a loose rivet, a tang rusted thin where it disappears into the wood, that's damage, and some of it's a safety problem. Wear is even and gradual and follows the way a hand works. Harm is sudden and local, and usually involves either water or somebody in a hurry. So the first man gets old, or he dies, or the farm gets sold, and the knife doesn't go with him. Here's the quiet thing about the second pair of hands. He doesn't go buy his own. He just starts using this one. Which is a strange little fact when you sit with it. This was the cheapest knife in the house. Replacing it would have cost almost nothing. He kept it anyway. Sometimes the stone comes with it. That's worth knowing. If there's an old oil stone in the same drawer, a flat gray thing dished out in the middle, don't separate those two. Whoever sharpened this knife did it on something, and if that something is still in the house, it's part of the record. And somewhere in this second stretch of the knife's life, it stops being a kitchen knife. Not by decision. Nobody announced it. It just gets carried out to the butcher table in the fall and doesn't come all the way back. It ends up in a truck because it was the sharpest thing available. It rides in a tackle box for a season, cuts twine in a garden, and finally lands in the bottom drawer of a workbench, cutting hose and cardboard and roofing felt for another 20 years. Ontario noticed the same drift from their side. They eventually added outdoor and hunting patterns to the line, and when they announced one, their own salesman said plainly that the series was already popular and trusted among outdoorsmen. The customers got there before the catalog did. Let me put two knives side by side. Somebody in that family got a boxed stainless carving set as a wedding present. Beautiful thing. Came out at Thanksgiving, got wiped down, went back in its sleeve, and the ugly one went to camp in a truck. 20 years on, which of those two still has a job? The carving knife is fine. It's also in a closet. It was built for one occasion, and when the occasion stopped, the knife stopped. This one was never good enough at any single thing to be retired from the others. A blade with a comfortable handle and no particular specialty can be reassigned, over and over. Kitchen, camp, garden, shop, and every reassignment buys it another decade. So the thing knife people criticize about this pattern, that it isn't optimized for anything in particular, may be exactly why yours is still in the house. Your grandfather didn't need it to stay what the catalog called it. And the second pair of hands built something into this knife you can't buy and can't put on a box. Familiarity. After a few thousand repetitions, a man knows where this balance is, and how much it flexes when he leans on it. He knows the spot on the handle where his thumb sits, because his own hand wore it in. Feel this. One side of the wood is smoother than the other. He knows how many passes on the stone bring it back. That takes years to build, and about 4 seconds to lose, when somebody hands you a different knife. And every one of those years made the knife worth less to everybody else. Blade narrowed, handle thinned, brand rubbed almost off the wood. A dealer looks at that and sees a common pattern in rough shape. So a tool can become more useful to one man, exactly as it becomes less valuable to everyone else. And I'll be straight with you about the money, because plenty of channels won't. These patterns were made in enormous numbers for a very long time. Used-up examples are everywhere. There's no secret money hiding in the average one, and somebody asking a big number online is stating an asking price, not a market value. But look what that bought us. Because it never became precious, it never got put away. The knives that got protected went in a drawer. This one stayed in the fight. Which brings us to the third pair of hands. Probably yours. You're clearing out a house, or your mother hands you a drawer, and there it is, narrow, black, worn brown handle, and no paperwork, no box, nobody who remembers when it was bought. And the first instinct, almost universally, is to make it look better. Sandpaper, steel wool, maybe a wire wheel if there's one on the bench. Wait, 4 different things get called rust, and they need 4 different decisions. This dark film here, even gray to charcoal, doesn't come off on a dry cloth. That's patina. It's what carbon steel does after years of food acids and moisture and air, and Ontario itself calls that darkening desirable and a sign of age. This, though, down here near the rivet, orange, powdery smears on my thumb. That's active rust, and it's still going. Different problem, and it's the one worth acting on. Then pitting, tilted in raking light, and you'll see little craters, sometimes with a rusty crumb sitting in each one. That's corrosion that already ate downward. Polishing the top won't undo it. And the one nobody checks, the joint, where the tang disappears between the wood and under the rivets. Dark bleeding out from a rivet, wood lifted or spongy, a gap you can rock with a fingernail. That's water that got in years ago, and it's the most common hidden failure on old kitchen knives. The black you're about to scrub off may be older than you are. That doesn't mean every dark spot is sacred. It means know which one you're looking at first. So here's the whole routine. 4 words, in order. Photograph, read, ask, decide. Get them out of order, and you can't get back. Photograph first, and I already gave you the short version. Here's the rest of it. Both blade faces. The full profile against a plain matte background, so the outline is clear. Every marking, lit from the side light, makes a worn stamp readable when a flash just blows it out. The spine, the edge viewed end on, so its thickness and any scalloping shows. Both handle scales, each rivet on its own. Any repair, any initials, any staining, the sheath or the box, inside and out, including whatever's written on it, and one shot with a ruler laid alongside. That's 8 minutes with the phone in your pocket. Back it up somewhere off the phone. Then read it. Copy the markings out exactly, letter for letter. On these you'll commonly see the brand on the blade or burned into the wood, often Ontario Knife Company, sometimes True Edge, sometimes Made in USA, sometimes a pattern number. And here's where people get themselves in trouble. Those pattern numbers describe the model, not the year. There is no published factory chart that turns an Old Hickory stamp into a date. Anybody selling you a precise year off a photograph is filling in a blank with confidence. Record the marking. Don't invent the birthday. Read the geometry too, before you change it. Has the blade narrowed? Has the belly flattened? Is the tip original, or was it broken and reshaped? Is there a scoop worn where somebody sharpened one spot for years? And read the handle without making up stories. Rivets, cracks, oil darkening, home repairs, tape, burn marks, initials. Write down what you see. Don't write down what you think it means. A burn mark tells me the wood got hot. It does not tell me your grandfather set it on a stove, no matter how good that would sound in a family story. Then ask. This is the part people skip, and it's the only part with a deadline. Who owned it? Where they lived? What they used it for? Kitchen, butchering, hunting, the shop. Who sharpened it and on what? How it came into the family. Has it ever been repaired or rehandled? Are there photographs from that kitchen or that camp where this knife might be sitting in the background on a counter? 10 minutes with an older relative preserves more history than a whole afternoon of polishing. And unlike the knife, that relative isn't going to be here forever. Record the conversation on your phone if they'll let you. If two people disagree, write down both versions with both names. That's real provenance work, and it beats a smoothed-out single story every time. Only then do you decide, and you've got 3 different jobs to choose from. Preserve. Leave the surface alone. Get it dry, keep it out of humidity, and stop. Stabilize. Deal with the active problems only. Halt the orange rust where it's living, with the least aggressive thing that works. Support a loose scale without forcing it. Nothing cosmetic. Restore. Deliberately change the surface or the shape. Sanding, buffing, wire wheeling, regrinding, new wood. All 3 are legitimate. Somebody who wants a working knife back in the rotation is not a criminal. But only the first 2 leave your options open. Sanded wood can't be unsanded. 40 years of patina can't be put back on. A reground profile takes the wear record with it. One more thing worth saying, since it's the manufacturer's own advice. Ontario says, if the blade shows rust, take steel wool to it, and then oil it. For a working knife, that's sound. It wasn't written for something you're trying to document. Steel wool is an abrasive. It takes patina, softens stamp edges, and can carry off initials along with the rust. So if this knife might matter to your family, photograph, read, ask. Then decide, in that order. Here's a turn I didn't expect when I started pulling records on this. For about a century, customers could not wear this knife out of existence. They sharpened it down to a sliver and kept it. And then, in 2023, the company underneath it nearly went away. Ontario's parent company got out of the knife business. That summer, the Franklinville plant, in the town the company had worked out of since the early 1900s, shut down, and 56 people lost their jobs. The assets went to a distributor down in Virginia, and for a while nobody outside knew whether these knives would keep being made in New York at all. 99 years of customers couldn't kill this knife. It took a corporate reorganization to come close. The brand is still here. Old Hickory is still listed and still sold. But brand continuity and factory continuity are 2 different claims. If you're buying new, check where it was made rather than assuming. And if you're holding an old one, none of this touches it. The knife was always the more durable half of the arrangement. Let me be fair here, because I'm not selling you the idea that old things are automatically better. They aren't. A modern stainless knife will forgive you for leaving it wet in the sink. This one won't. Modern handles are often more comfortable and easier to keep clean, and a stainless blade asks almost nothing of you. But look at what this one assumes about the person holding it. It assumes you own a stone. It assumes you'll dry it. It assumes wear is normal and coming, and that you'll deal with it as it arrives. That's a different arrangement than the one we live in now. The modern premium promise is, buy it once, because it can never wear out. This knife's promise was smaller and more truthful. It will wear out. Keep after it, and keep going. It wasn't built to stay new. It was built to stay useful. So back to that drawer, and back to you standing over it. I can't tell you your knife passed through 3 specific pairs of hands. Unless somebody wrote it down, nobody can. And most family knives have no paperwork at all. What I've described is the common path, not a documented family. But the path leaves marks, and you can check them against what you're holding. A blade narrower than it started. A handle worn smoother on one side than the other. Rivets darkened where a wet hand gripped it 10,000 times. Maybe a set of initials somebody scratched into the wood so it wouldn't walk off at a butchering. And notice what actually moved from hand to hand. It wasn't the steel. There's less of that now than when it started. It was the motion, how to put an edge on, how to dry a blade before it goes in a drawer, how to look at a worn tool and think, this still works, instead of, this is finished. The second man learned that from watching the first one. Nobody sat him down. Sometimes what survives 3 generations isn't the object. It's the habit of keeping useful things useful. So if there's an old hickory in your family, don't tell me what it's worth. Tell me who used it. Who owned yours? What did they use it for? And is it still working? Or is it in a drawer waiting on a decision? Put it in the comments. I read them, and this channel gets better because of them. And before you clean anything, the free guide is in the description. Old Hickory Family Knife Field Guide. What to check before you clean Grandpa's knife. The photograph checklist. What the surface is telling you. The 10 questions for your family. And a provenance sheet to keep with the knife. Some American knives survived because somebody protected them. This one survived because people kept using it.